So it's nice to see so many of you here. Obviously, it shows that there's a big level of interest in what we're doing in the area of cloud computing. And I will tell you this, we've had a couple of similar sorts of information events like this for the state customers, for the departments and agencies. And just as you would expect, there's a similar level of enthusiasm and interest in what we're doing. So it's nice to be able to come over here and share a lot of information with you. I know that there's been a lot of questions about, okay, how's this all going to work? What are you guys doing? You know, how do I get our services into CalCloud's environment? And we're going to hopefully answer all those questions for you today. I did want to share with you just a little bit of an experience, or some of my own experience working in government. But I want to start with a question. I know we have several retired employees here, state employees. I'm not going to say who they are, but they're sitting in the back. They're trying to act like, no, we never worked for the state, like it was a bad thing. How many of you have been working in and around government, say, the last 10 years? Can I see a show of hands? All right, quite a few of you. Last 20 years? All right. If you're embarrassed to do this, or if you just can't lift your arm, that's okay. How many of you have been in and around government for 30 years? There's a few that are like, I can't hear you. Okay, so there's some of you, okay? So I'm right in between 20 and 30 years. So I just want to share my experience working in government. When the PCs came in, right? Before that, it was all green screen terminals, big mainframe computers and everything. When PCs came in, that had a big impact on government. It was a really positive one. It was a new technology model, put a lot more power into the hands of the users, and overall was a really good thing. It presented some challenges to those of us that worked in government, and especially for those that worked in and around technology. It made the environment a lot more complex and a little bit more chaotic. And there was a lot of, I guess I'd call it just differences in variety in the way departments went about accessing and implementing the use of PCs, right? People were buying just all kinds of different models and buying them on their own. At some point, it got a little bit unmanageable. We weren't able to really track, okay, well, where are the PCs? Who's using them? You know, how are they being patched? Are they being maintained? Do we have current operating systems? So we started to get a little bit more strategic about how we manage them, especially around buying them and trying to leverage buying power for the state. A few years later, the web came around, right? Internet services, web services, and the same thing. It was a new technology model, really presented a leap forward for the state in terms of being able to interact with its customers. But the same sort of thing started to happen. Individual departments started to stand up web services or online, web information or transaction web pages. But if you were a customer of the state, you'd go in one department, it'd be really easy to navigate and cool. And some departments, they didn't have anything. In other departments, they'd had a website, but completely different. You didn't even know you were dealing with the same state. So eventually we thought, okay, well, we got to kind of be a little bit strategic about how we deal with departments using the internet. And so we developed some standards and some models where we said, okay, let's all try and at least have the same look and feel. And if you're going to do online transactions, let's be careful about what information we collect and post. And let's pay attention to security and those sorts of things. And so we got a little better about how we manage the web. Fast forward another few years, and then mobile computing came. Same sort of deal. Departments rushed to put stuff online in a mobile app sort of an environment, but depending on what kind of phone you had, you might have an app that worked, but only if you had an iPhone. So again, we try to get a little bit strategic about that. That's what happened with cloud computing as well. It was a new technology model, lots of interest in it with the state, with the different state agencies, of folks saying, okay, let's try and leverage it because it's really good for us. It's a model that helps us be a little bit more responsive and efficient as a government, and to provide better services to our customers. So it was the same sort of deal. Individual departments were really interested in it, but this time we thought, okay, since we know that this pattern happens over and over, let's try to be strategic about it. If there's stuff, cloud computing wise, that we know lots of departments want to use, let's try and approach it from an enterprise perspective. And that's really what was the initiation of CalCloud, of trying to do things in a strategic way. So you don't have 17 different departments trying to get into 17 different procurements with 17 different types of contracts with different standards around security and everything else. And so that's where we decided, okay, let's have OTEC, which is an enterprise technology services organization, offer technology services, especially cloud computing services, in a way that's just a little bit more strategic. So today is about talking about what is CalCloud, what's in there, what are the enterprise services that we have today, but I think more importantly to most of you in the room is, okay, what's our plan going forward? How are we going to expand the portfolio? And I have to tell you, there's a lot of interest among state departments in expanding the portfolio. They want more services in there. And so one of the things that we've done, and you'll hear about this, is to really spend a lot of time with our customers, with the state agencies, and in some cases local agencies too, to find out from them, what is it that you're looking for? What do you want out of the cloud computing services that are available, not just through OTEC today, but just out there in the marketplace. And so what you're going to hear about today is our findings from that. You know, what do the customers want? What have they asked us to do? And you guys can kind of guess, you know, the sorts of things that they've come back to us that are concerns of theirs. You know, cost is always one of them. Ease of use, you know, how quickly they can access services, and security. You know, that's what they've told us are the things that are principal concern to them, and how do we make it easy for them to acquire these services. So what we've come to talk to you about is, okay, how do you play in that? How can we partner with you? What are the opportunities to work with us to expand the portfolio? How do you go about doing that? What other opportunities are there out there? Because it's not just about putting services into the cloud catalog. There's a lot of, I guess I'd call it help, that individual agencies need in transition, in planning, and in migrating to a cloud environment. And then ultimately, I think we want to spend some time giving you a chance to just ask any other questions you may have. But really, that's what today is about. It's about engaging you, telling you where we see is in terms of opportunities for you to engage, how to bring, especially those of you that have cloud services and cloud technologies, how to bring those into the state's enterprise portfolio. And then what do you do if it's something that may not be a good fit for the enterprise portfolio? You know, what are your options there? So we hope to cover all of that today. We hopefully have anticipated some of the big questions that, you know, that we've heard a lot, and so we'll be able to address those as well. But if you have other questions, by all means, you know, ask them. Again, I want to thank you all. I'm going to ask Chris to come on up, and we'll turn it over to him. And thank you for attending here, and thank you for the folks on the webinar.